Ryan Spahn is a jack-of-all-trades creator. In addition to his numerous stage and screen credits, he has also served as a writer and a director. Fun fact, he was also the cinematographer of Broadway.com's award-winning live stream of Byron Cellar, starring his longtime love, Michael Urie. Now, Spahn has adapted Nora Highland, a show he wrote for last year's Pride Plays, into a movie. I spoke with him about the pandemic-produced project and staying creative. Ryan Spahn, it's so good to see you. Thank you for joining me.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me. How's it going?
I'm doing, we're all hanging in there as best we can. I'm so happy to be talking to you.
Likewise, that is true. We are hanging in.
Yes. How are you doing during this time? I know that is a loaded question right now, but you have created a wonderful film.
Thank you.
It's so amazing. Nora Highland is this project that I know started off as a play.
That's correct.
Yes, it premiered, I believe, last year during the Pride Plays Festival at the Rattlestick Playwrights Theater. Can you tell me a little bit about, how do you describe Nora Highland?
The play started as it's a two-hander. It's designed as a two-hander, which means that one male and one female identifying actor play all the parts all the way through. And then I had that premiered for its first audience during the Pride Plays Festival, as you said, in 2019. And that was the first time an audience heard it. And then the following spring, the pandemic hit. And Jeremy Ween, who runs Play Per View, asked me to do a digital reading of the play. And so Michael Urie and Tessa Thompson read the two parts all the way through as a fundraising event. And then when I watched it, I realized how suited it was for the digital space. And I think one of the struggles has been, as both a performer and a viewer, is that a lot of things you watch that are virtual, that weren't meant to be virtual, you can feel that they were not meant to be virtual. And I felt like when I watched Nora Highland being presented as a play on this format, I realized pretty quickly how suited it was for that. And so I started changing the script to be a 6 or 8 person cast, and changed all of the scenes to be either a found footage camera situation or a Zoom meeting. The whole entire film was shot on Zoom, and everyone had to practically shoot themselves. And it really, I think, is successful in being a piece that feels intended for the format that it's presented on, which I think is what is really exciting about both the film and the pandemic filming experience, which is its own weird thing.
Absolutely, but it's so cool to see what I consider you a multi-hyphenate creator. And so I think it's so amazing that you've taken this on in this way and have made the pivot from stage to screen. Now, Nora Highland deals with subject matter that I feel like having a lot of friends, both in the theater community and just friends that are performers elsewhere, I feel like this subject matter has come up a lot in conversations I've had with friends. And I always appreciate a show that tackles a conversation like that. For those that don't know, can you sort of unpack the subject matter of Nora Highland without giving anything away?
Of course. So Nora Highland examines the casting process of the revival of a Broadway show that was very successful 20 years ago, in which the central character is an openly gay character, and there's discrepancy about who should be playing that role. And so I took 3 sort of situations in which this could be discussed. So it breaks down into 3 parts. And so the first part is a casting actor and a casting director. The second part is a meeting between the director of the revival and an actor that this person is very interested in meeting for the role. And then the third scene is an LGBT gala in which they're honoring somebody. And I feel like those 3 situations, both in my personal life and in my professional life, I have witnessed this sort of very, very, very deeply rooted homophobia that still is percolating throughout the industry.
Yes, I think not to spoil anything, I believe the film starts with this list. someone that has a lot of friends within that community, it was, again, I've heard friends talk about this in terms of their casting experiences and in terms of representation in general in TV and film, but that was sort of laying it out that way was so jarring. And even just the speeches you took from real life in your trailer, that made me so, I feel like excited is the wrong word, because it is definitely something that I think we are evaluating. But it definitely, I think it's so interesting that this is the subject matter that inspired your art. So what was...
Because I think exciting is the right word. I would argue that that is actually the right word, because I think change and conversation can happen if people get excited about things. And I think we've hit a point in our culture where it's very hard for people with opposing views to get excited to talk to each other. And I think this is a conversation that needs to be happening amongst people who don't see the position I have and need to see it, along with people who deeply see it. They need to be able to express it in a succinct and compelling way in order for there to be an exciting conversation to happen around it. And I think that my goal and my dream is for this film to just open up conversations with people who just aren't aware at the subtle and not so subtle ways in which they are homophobic. Really is what it boils down to. And I think, and what's tricky is so many people say that they cast or assemble a cast based on the best people that they saw in the room for a specific role, which I want to believe, and I want to believe that that is true. But the reality is that the same kind of person, the same types, the same prototypes are the people who are often in those rooms the most, and therefore they're stronger at the audition process. They're stronger in those situations. They are bolder and brighter because they've literally worked the muscle of being presented in that way. And so when they're against somebody who's being undervalued and underused, and they're all placed in the same pool, that person who is probably better for the role isn't going to shine in that specific environment. And I think that a show like Pose is a shining example of that, because I feel like, if you've seen it, have you seen Pose?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so in my opinion, the first couple of episodes, I was like, oh, well, how's this going to go? Because some of these actors felt very new to acting, or new to acting with this much on their plate. And then I think as the series went on through the first season, and particularly into the second season, everyone is extraordinary on the show. And it just proves that if you give somebody a chance, if you give them a moment to figure it out, they will. But if you're deciding on somebody who's best in the room, who's best in the moment, who's the best for the job, you're going to miss an entire world of person who is probably better suited to telling certain stories. And then once those people have the strength and the power within those stories, they'll be allowed to perform in other stories. Because I don't believe that only people should stay in their lane, but I do think if all lanes are open, they need to be all open for everyone. They can't just be open for this straight cis demographic. That's just not, because then the more that those people who identify that way come into the other smaller categories, the people who are only allowed in those categories get pushed out, and it becomes a messier, dicier situation.
What was the moment that you were like, oh, this is a play?
I was running into a lot of problems with it. And I think a big, I'm partnered with somebody who a lot of people know in this industry, and he's a well-known actor and he's a well-known name. And so I'll walk into situations in which immediately that's what we're talking about. And so my individuality feels kind of lost, or my privacy feels lost. And I feel like that was coming up so much. And most of the time it probably wasn't affecting what jobs I was and was not getting, or what encounters I was not succeeding at, but some of them it did. And that, coupled with the other stuff that anyone who's queer deals with, it just started to just build inside of me. And I started writing that first scene between the young actor and the casting director. And that's all true. Like, all of those things have been said to me. someone told me the thinly veiled ways in which people say like butch it up basically, or the way that they give you a note to be a certain type of guy before you've even auditioned, spoken a word of the script. There's an assumption about what you're going to do just based on what they think they know about you. And I can call a friend who went in for the same role and be like, hey, did that person do this to you? And the response will be, oh, no. We didn't. We went right on. We talked about other things. And so I feel like there's a definite thing that people do, and I don't know how to wrap my head around it. And so I'm hoping that NORA HIGHLAND helps people wrap their head around it, particularly people in power.
You have taken it upon yourself to adapt this play into a film. Can you tell me a little bit about your process of making a film and working remotely with some of my favorite talents?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, this cast couldn't be better. And I would say most of them have never met in person. So that was one of the more interesting things. So for instance, the second scene, which is a conversation between two very old friends, between Marin Ireland and Michael Urie, they had never met in person. And they had to find a history through Zoom rehearsals. We rehearsed it a bunch and then we recorded it in one take. So it's like a 40-minute take. And then I played with like time. I would speed things up or I would do different things to it in the editing room, but it is one single take and we only did it once. And that was exciting. That was thrilling. And that was theatrical for us. And all three of us are theater people. And so when it was happening, when it was done, we all got pretty emotional about how much we missed 30 minutes of performing in a way where it feels like if something goes wrong, we can't stop. And with normal filmmaking, you just cut and you start over and you do it again. But in this instance, it was rehearsed and presented like a short play. And so that was really exciting to me. This really was a very moving and bonding and emotional experience for all of us.
I understand that it is going to be part of the New Fest Film Festival. Can you tell me a little bit about how that opportunity came together?
Sure.
And how people can see it?
Yes, of course. Thank you for bringing that up. I submitted the film when it was done to New Fest, which is New York's LGBT film festival. And it was selected, which is wonderful. So it's having its world premiere on Monday, the 26th of October at 8 p.m. And basically what you do if you want to see it, which hopefully you do, is you go to the New Fest website, you type in NORA HIGHLAND, there's a buy ticket thing. I think they're like $10 or something, and you click on it. And then I'm assuming the day of the show, New Fest sends you the link information, and then at 8 o'clock it premieres because all film festivals are digital this year. And so New Fest is currently underway and films are premiering all week. And then ours hits on the 26th of October. And then you can watch it from your computer or your phone, or if you can put it up on your television, you can do that. But it's also a really cool way to be involved with a film festival because they have like 50 movies playing, and all of the movies have talkbacks at the end that they've pre-recorded, and there's an intro and there's like ads, which, say what you will about ads, the whole experience of it feels like you're at a film festival, which is really cool. And then when it's over, you can reach out to those filmmakers on social media and tell them how much you loved their films. And then you can schmooze that way, I guess, like in the way that you would at a film festival if you were attending it in person. There's ways to still feel like you're involved in something as opposed to just sitting back and looking at your watch.
In the film, I know we can hear your longtime love, Michael Urie's voice. It's during a very funny scene. And I know that you were the cinematographer behind a very bright spot for theater lovers in all of this, which was Broadway.com's award-winning live stream of Iron Cellar.
Iron Cellar, yeah.
Yeah, I understand. I do understand the implications of being a part of a theater couple and two wonderful people that are creatively inclined. Do you mind telling me what it's like to collaborate specifically with Michael? I know obviously you enjoy each other's company.
I think I love collaborating with him. And I think, prior to all of this, actually, I'm wearing a hat for, I created a web series with Hallie Pfeiffer about idiots who run a 911 call center in Hell, Michigan. It's called What's Your Emergency? And Michael directed that. And prior to that, Hallie and I made a film called He's Way More Famous Than You that Michael directed. And so we had all of this experience with filmmaking together. And so when the pandemic hit, we hadn't at that point done a lot of theater together, but then now that we live together, we were able to do, MCC did a show with us. It was a short play that Tulene Monahan wrote that was called Frankie and Will, about Will Shakespeare and his apprentice living in a house together during quarantine. And we were able to film it with multiple cameras. And then Byron Seller, we were able to film that live in this space. Actually, it's been exciting because we were able to use the stuff that we learned prior to the pandemic. We were able to use that in a really tangible way that made us able to really succeed, I feel like, in a lot of the early streaming stuff.
You have been in some of my favorite off-Broadway works, like Daniel's Husband and Gloria. You are, in addition to being all of these other creative roles, you are also a true man of the theater. That's what your background is. That is what you originally started this journey with. What, as a man of the theater specifically, what are you most looking forward to?
That's very sweet of you to say, because I sometimes struggle with thinking that I'm that, and so it's just nice to hear what you said. So thank you. I miss audiences. I feel so sad for people whose job it is in the theater to be an audience member. They don't have that right now. I think actors and even directors and many other fields can at least get their fix doing something to a certain extent, but I feel like true hardcore theater audience members who go 6 times a week and that's how they just feel and experience their highs and their lows. They don't have that right now, and I just want that back.
I think we all want that back, very, very much. Is there anything that I didn't ask you or that you didn't get to say about Nora Highland?
I just want to say thank you to the whole cast. Mallory Portnoy, Marcus Crawford Guy, Eric Harper, Michael Rosen, Marin Ireland, Carlise Burke, Henry Jenkinson, Michael Urie. They were all just totally game, totally on board, and really just sold this piece in its format. And I think that I'm just so grateful for them that they went for it as strongly and as powerfully as they did.
Ryan, thank you so much for joining me. I hope that Nora Highland reaches the wider audience that it deserves. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It really means a lot. I'm really excited.